Hey guys, David here. In this video, I want to talk about how Claude Code has just changed lead generation forever. It's because the kind of thing that used to take a bunch of tools, I'm talking Apollo, Sales Navigator, Clay, a stack of subscriptions that could cost you $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000 a month, can now be accomplished with one super tool and just a few subscriptions. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can get up and running with a cold email system, because this same system that I'm showing you is what I've been using for the better part of a year now to generate over thousands of calls for clients, as well as generate millions of dollars in pipeline. In this tutorial specifically, it's going to be a leaner version of what I use so you guys can get started. So if you are already running an agency or you want to get started, you already have an offer and you just want to get more clients, this video is perfect for you. So in this video, I'll break it into 3 parts. First, the exact outbound stack I would use if I was just starting. Then I'll build a complete campaign live as if I was just starting and I already had a couple of clients with a single offer. And finally, the real monthly costs. And so even if you've never written a line of code or you have no technical background, you have no idea where to begin with Claude Code, you can still do this because you're actually just typing, or in some cases speaking, in plain English. So we're going to get into it. Okay, so if you don't know already, there's 3 different types of Claude applications that you can use. Starting with the most familiar one, it's the Claude Chat. This is just the web browser that most people already know about. It's the same as when ChatGPT came out and you just have a text box with, you just type and then it talks back to you. So you can have Claude Chat on your browser. It can search the web for you, give you research. It can maybe read files for you, but you have to paste it in there. So it can't access your computer or your files or create anything other than what's possible within the chat window, what it can render inside the chat. That's the first one. The second one is going to be Claude Cowork. Now this is, people say Claude Cowork and Claude Code are the same. Claude Cowork is just the non-technical version, and that's couldn't be any more true. So Claude Cowork, it's a desktop app. It works inside your folders. You talk to it, it returns finished work. It's kind of kept on a leash, if you will. It's restricted. I personally haven't touched Cowork too much. I strictly live inside Claude Code, and there's a few different terminals that I use for Claude Code, and I'm going to get into that in a second. Yeah, that's the next one, and that's probably the one with highest leverage is Claude Code, because now you have full access to your computer. It has terminal access, and it can execute on your behalf. So Claude Code, it runs the entire thing. It can touch your files, it runs real tools, plugins, and it can even connect via MCP, APIs, all that jazz. So to summarize it all up for you, the 3 different Claude applications, they're practically the same brain. The difference is really just how much access it has to your computer. So if you're watching this video, it's very likely you already have Claude Code installed, whether that's on the desktop app or the terminal. But if you don't, it's a real quick reference. I'll run you guys through it. You are going to want to run this command inside a terminal. So if you go to your apps and you just type in terminal or your IDE of your choice, it could be VS Code, it could be anti-gravity. I've been playing around with CMux lately. I like that one. You're just gonna copy this and then paste it. If you're using Mac OS, which I feel like most people are, if you aren't, I'm sorry, just ask Claude and it'll help you. As of 2026, the recommended method is the native installer, which no longer requires dependencies. Previously, you would have to install Node.js or Homebrew or other commands in your terminal before you would even have a chance at downloading Claude with their command. So that's how you do it. Afterwards, you just want to restart your terminal and then type in Claude space -- version, and you should be able to verify that you have the latest version of Claude. And so before we get into the entire tutorial, one last thing I want to cover, the differences between Clay and Claude Code. So with Clay, it's a large table. So this is actually what Clay looks like. I use Clay on a day-to-day basis. It's essentially just a very powerful table. You have a bunch of columns. You can run waterfall enrichments, which is using multiple providers without needing a subscription. Although if you want to be economic with your enrichments, you definitely want to get additional subscriptions and just plug in your API keys to it. But this is essentially what it looks like. You can validate emails. You can run custom AI columns that are called Claudes that allow you to surface data that would be scraped or otherwise researched. And then you pretty much aggregate all this into a clean table, which you then use to upload into your campaign. So the difference between Claude Code and Clay is that Claude Code is capable of doing this exact same thing. Claude has a more flexible capability. If there is no native integration, Claude Code can spin up a custom scraper or sub-agents and find the data for you, or even plug in via MCP or API. On the contrary, Clay needs a native integration. Otherwise, it's limited to just Claudes. So I've used both tools extensively. I think that Clay covers a lot of data, especially if you have the budget to do so. But I would say that if you're technical enough, you can replace most things with Claude Code. Especially if you're on a budget, I would lean towards Claude Code. So in this video, we're going to be using Claude Code because not everybody has a large budget. And I'm going to break down the entire cost for you. And the nice thing is that you can just connect directly via API. Claude Code is going to read all the documentation for you and know exactly what endpoints to hit. It can connect via MCP if there is documentation there, or it can just launch sub-agents and scrub resources for you. So approximately $100 a month for the max plan. In this tutorial, I'm going to calculate it with the $20. That should get you enough to use or launch this entire campaign. But for the most part, if you're a heavier user, I do recommend the $100 a month plan. It does pay for itself rather quickly. So the consensus here is on a budget, Claude Code wins the 80-20. Okay, now we're going to talk about the starter stack, or what I would use if I were starting today. And this is what I would recommend for you guys if you were starting today. So this is the starter stack, and I broke it down the cost for you as well. You can screenshot this. I'll be sharing it inside of my school community. I'll give you direct links to everything that you need. I even went ahead and got some screenshots for you just to show you that these prices are accurate as of today's date. So let me go over why we're going to need these tools. First, we're going to start with Never Bounce. We want to clean our emails when we get them from our data source. So we're just going to be validating the emails. The Never Bounce tool, a good bang for your buck, just because that they offer a pay-as-you-go plan. So you don't need a subscription. You can just opt in for the pay-as-you-go. It's $69 for 5,000 credits, which means that you can get up to 5,000 contacts with valid emails using that plan, or that pay-as-you-go plan. The next thing I would get is cheap inboxes. So I've used Zapmail, cheap inboxes, premium inboxes. I've used plenty inbox providers. I really like cheap inboxes. They offer Google and Microsoft. Yeah, they're super helpful, super friendly. The support is phenomenal. And they even have this estimated cost calculator. If you just want to click over to this link, I'll be sure to paste it somewhere in this video. In our case, if you're just starting out, I recommend that you get 27 inboxes. That's going to cost you about $94.50 per month for Google. And the reason being is because we are going to purchase domains. For each domain, you're going to want 3 inboxes. You can have up to 5, but I recommend to stay conservative so you can preserve the health of your inboxes. So if you have 27 inboxes, that's going to equal out to 9 sending domains, which leads me to my next cost, which is going to be domains. So you want 9 sending domains. That'll get you 27 inboxes. So this $108 spend, by the way, estimated $12 per domain. The $12 is going to be for the .com TLDs. You can purchase cheaper TLDs like .net, .info, although you're really not in a place to optimize. So I would argue if you are on a budget, you can save a little bit of money there. You can possibly cut this more than half, but if you want to get .com, which is a more premium TLD, $108 is going to be the cost for about 9 domains. The next spend is going to be Apify. So this is going to be our lead source. Apify is going to allow us to scrape LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, or Apollo, or any other of these data aggregators. And it's $29 for their starting monthly subscription. That's going to allow you to scrape over 10K leads easily, but they don't have a pay-as-you-go option. So that's a $29 plan there. Next is going to be our Power tool, the thing that puts everything together and allows us to run through a whole campaign. It's going to be Claude Code. So this is going to allow us to find, qualify, and personalize our leads directly into our Google Sheet. It's only going to cost you $20. If you have the extra money, definitely go for the $100 plan, and you should be able to get through this entire campaign using Sonnet 4.7 or maybe Opus 4.8 if you're conservative with your prompts. Next, we're going to need our sequencers. So a sequencer is what we're going to use to send out our messages. If you're starting, you'll definitely want to use something a bit cheaper, like Instantly. If you have the budget, I do recommend Email Bison. Their API is phenomenal. You have a lot more functionality, endpoints, capabilities, so you can actually launch a campaign directly inside your terminal. It's crazy. And I'll launch a video like that if you guys want. Just drop a comment below. But Instantly, it's going to be $99. You'll have more than enough sends available, as well as contacts to load inside your sequencer. So if we put this entire cost together, the total cost for all of our tooling for 1 month all in is about $420. This is actually wrong because the domain cost is a one-time cost. So if you just front load that $108 one time, so this is what we get, 10,800 sends. If you're running a 2-touch sequence, which I do recommend, that comes out to 5,400 leads. The reality is if you're just starting, you're going to want to get a pulse on your offer and your audience. I think 2-touch is golden. You can also reach more people that way too. So given that we're on a budget in this video, I do recommend the 2-touch sequence. If you are going to go for the 3-touch sequence, then this total cost will cover about 3,600 leads. All right, guys, now we're going to start building a lead list. Before we build this list, if you enjoy this content, you want to see more Claude Code or go-to-market videos, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. Before we build a lead list, we're going to want to know who we're targeting. In order to know who we're targeting, we're going to want to know what our offer is because our offer is going to solve a pain point. If you have no experience and you're just starting, I highly encourage you to go to Upwork and find a high intent lead that is willing to pay you for your services gladly. But I urge you to just have some more experience. That way your cold emails read a lot sharper because you have social proof and you can actually make claims that might be more compelling in the copy. I'll give you guys an example. Let's say you've already done a couple of jobs. Automation that I recently did for a larger company. We're talking over 200 employees. So I built an automation that allows SDRs to send a message in a single chat with natural language, with all of the context and the details needed that they can remember off the top of their head. And it finishes all those things in less than 3 minutes. Okay, so given the automation and the customer that I sold that automation to that had a lot of success, I want to recreate that, if you will. So my audience will essentially be a lookalike of that same client that I serviced, and my offer is going to be that same SDR time-saving offer that I found a lot of success, or that client found a lot of success in. So given that social proof that I just shared, I'm going to target that same exact company. It's going to be a lookalike of that company, and my offer will be the same exact thing, the same exact system. I'll just generalize it a bit more so it can plug in, and I'm going to have Claude help me build that ICP card. So in this prompt, we have a fresh repo, and I'm going to say, okay, perfect. So we're going to paste all of that in there, and we're just going to let Claude cook, and then we're going to establish our audience and our offer. And once we have that, then we know who to target. Okay, so Claude has finished. It's given me an ICP card just because that's what I reference. So now it understands who we're targeting, and it is high meeting volume companies, outbound led, mid-market. So the lookalike profile is 100 to 500 employees, multi-state. They have SDRs. They're selling into small businesses. So I think this looks good. So we're essentially targeting MSPs. That's all we're doing, managed service providers. From here, what we're going to want to do is, now that we've locked down our audience, I'm going to tell Claude that we're going to build a lead list. So whether you type this or you use your Whisper Flow or whatever, I like to use Super Whisper. I'm going to tell Claude, okay, great. We've locked down our ICP. What I want to do from here is build a lead list. So before we build that lead list, I want you to make sure you understand the input configuration for the lead list tool that we're going to build. So what I'm doing here is I am giving Claude additional context prior to just having Claude execute. Now that we've locked in our ICP card, I've told Claude exactly what I want, and I'm going to share the resource, which is going to be one of these scrapers. I've used these in the past. It gets the job done. This one has less stars. I'm going to go with this one. So it's about $1.70 per 1,000 leads. The $29 will cover this, more than enough, so you'll be able to iterate through leads. So what I'll do is I'll copy the Apify link, and I just want to be very thorough. So I'm going to say We're using Apify. Here is the console.apify link to the scraper. I will also share the scraper slug. So there's the link, and then I like to hit Option Enter for a new line, and I'll just copy the scraper slug. I'll drop it in here. So now Claude has the scraper slug. Confirm you understand the configuration inputs, and then we will configure our Apify run. You can see Claude is actually going to go to the website. It's going to scrape whatever it needs to find the schema, find the things that it needs to know the input fields and all of that. If you just go straight for it, it's very likely you're going to hit an error in your run and you could possibly waste tokens. So you always want to be thorough with your prompting. Make sure that you are covering all the context. So confirmed, Claude understands the schema. These are the input schema. So given our ICP card, it's suggesting how it's going to map to it. All I'm going to do is review this, and I'm going to make sure that I agree with it. So, 100 to 500 employees, I think that's perfect, right? Okay. One thing I want to advise you guys if you're building this lead list is you want to go as wide as possible. So we're just going to go wide. I'm going to answer all three of these questions. The second one is the revenue filter. I think it's not needed. We'll just skip that. Like I said, we want to go wide as possible. And then the third one, I believe that's it. The vertical scope. MSP only for the first run, or open to adjacent verticals from the ICP card. Likely whichever one has an outbound motion that uses SDRs and sales managers. Okay, great. So giving it my answers, it's going to scope out our input config, and then we will do a run. Before we can do a run though, I'm going to need to provide my API keys, which I will give in a second, and I'll show you guys exactly where to find those. Okay, great. So it looks like Claude has locked in our configuration, the firmographics. It also knows exactly who our personas are that we want to target. So it's going to be people in sales and marketing, leaders in sales and marketing. I should be more specific there. All that being said, it looks good. So could QA here with Claude, but we are going to go straight for it. Now, one thing that it's missing is the API key. Now that Claude knows exactly what it needs to enter without hitting any errors, I'm going to go to Apify. Bottom left-hand side, we have settings. We're going to want to hit API and integrations, and then here we have the API token. I'm going to copy this, and I will be rotating it after I paste it. Okay, great. So now that I'm back in the terminal, the API token is copied, and then I will paste the API key as well. So while that's running, we've solidified our offer, we've solidified our audience. Now we want to figure out what are we going to say to these people. So open up a different terminal. We're going to break down our ICP, our offer, which is already saved inside the repo from a separate session, the one that we were just working in. And we're going to have Claude help us ideate on copy. And then why don't we check on the other session? So the run is live. Yeah, it's got a poller watching it. I'm inside Apify right now. I just clicked on the left-hand side runs, and we can see that it's actually right here, scraping page after page. So you want to be careful when you're using an API key, because you can be activating things without getting a notification or even seeing it like on the UI side. But why don't we go back to our other session that we're working on copy with. And here you're just going to talk with Claude on your offer, your ICP card. Okay, great. So after we've established the correct offer and the correct ICP card for the separate session, it's given me a draft that we can use. Do I think it's any good? Maybe, maybe not. But I think we can refine it inside this terminal. Better yet, a Google Doc. Mind you, this is without any sort of context inside of the terminal. There's actually repos on GitHub out there that can help you with copywriting, cold email. And so what you're seeing here is a non-deterministic response of a blank repo. So this has no copy skills whatsoever. So the first touch, I'll just focus on the first touch for now. Hi, first name, personalization line. Saw company is hiring 2 more SDRs. That's not a bad line. That's a great signal. The problem is we're going wide. This isn't bad. It's missing social proof, but then again, we didn't give it any social proof, so that's totally fine. I'm gonna push this to a doc. And then we'll refine it together. Go ahead and push this to a Google Doc, the first and second touch, and then return the link to that doc. Okay, cool. So it looks like our doc is created. I'm gonna open it up. All right, here we go. So it's reeking of Claude generation, but not a big deal. We don't really need anything other than touch 1, touch 2. Personalization doesn't hurt. It really doesn't. But I think what would be a lot better is if we identified the specialty of the MSP. So what we're going to do is, rather than personalizing a whole line, I think I'd rather have a template with personalized adjective or a personalized a label for the lead. And instead of having AI generate the whole entire line, I'd rather just template the whole thing. Just show up and sell. Okay, cool. So this is a pretty strong first touch, if I do say so myself. Here we'll say David, head of growth, and then you'll put in your company name. So that would be the first touch. And this looks good to me. So now let's figure out what it's looking like on the second touch. And what I really like to do is keep it a lot short. Yeah, see right now, like what the AI is giving us isn't really correlating to revenue. So I just feel like it's not really strong. So what I want to touch on is the pipeline that they could be losing because SDRs might be spending more time. So last note, social proof company generated, you could say like, what would it be? 15% more pipeline in just the second week. If the math makes sense, I'll spin up the complimentary 3-week trial, no strings. Yeah, I really like this. This is a lot better. So subject line, we could personalize it. You could add the number in there, but I think this is fine. Opportunity cost with MSP type. Okay, cool. This is what I want the copy to be, and I feel good about it. We're not giving them the risk reversal until the second touch. So I think everything looks good here. I like this copy. So this is what we're going to roll with. Okay, so the lead list is built and segmented. It looks like it already did some grading for us, which is kind of nice. I didn't ask it for that. So we have a tier A, which is managed service providers that clearly run a managed services motion, whereas there's a bit over 1,000 that was the raw pool. And then we have tier B, which are IT security firms, which is fair. I'm just going to stick with tier A, and I'll just have Claude push that into a Google Doc. So push tier A leads into a Google Doc or a spreadsheet. So far, just to recap on everything that we've done, we've signed up to all these tools. We've built our lead list using the Apify API token. We established an offer and we established our audience. We took a lot of time writing some copy, which I'm very proud of. And so now we're just going to wrap it all up. This is the final stretch of the campaign. I'm going to show you guys how to validate your emails. If you're just getting started, then this step that we're about to take is sufficient enough. Once you hit anything over 5% bounce rate, I would be wary of it, monitor it. Yeah, this should get you the 80-20. Okay, great. So it looks like we have our lead list. I'm going to open this up and from here, we should be able to eyeball exactly the quality of the lead list. It's already formatted nicely for me. So we have our first name, last name, full name, the titles here. Not bad. Director of sales. Okay. What was really nice is that when it pulled the list from Apify, it had already graded the leads by tier A, tier B. But interestingly enough, Claude already did it. Now, that doesn't mean that you can trust whatever grading was done. It's always actually good to have an audit trail, but nonetheless, I think that just goes to show like the non-deterministic nature of Claude and how flexible it really is. I mean, this kind of allows you to create your repo how you see fit, and it gives you the empowerment or the advantage to lean into whatever it is that you'll be executing on. So as I'm reviewing these leads, everything looks good over here. I think that some of these companies are rather large, especially the 201 to 500. But surprisingly enough, it's crazy to think that the automation that I had built was something that you would think a company of that size would implement. But the truth is it hadn't. So the copy is addressing something that all companies care about regardless of size. And I say all that to say there's nothing like interfering with the market. So that's what we're going to do. Scoping this all out, it looks good. I think that we have a strong list here. So what I'm going to do is go back to my terminal. And the next step is going to be getting the API key from Never Bounce or Zero Bounce, some sort of email validation tool. In this case, I think it was Never Bounce. We're then going to have Claude run an email validation step, and we're actually going to add a new column inside of in here. So I'll actually have it update this column in place. Let me just highlight it, and let me go to a fresh terminal, and I'll just provide all the context. Okay, so I gave Claude this sheet. It's going to read everything, make sure it knows what it's going to target. Okay, guys, turns out it was zero bounce. So we're inside zero bounce. This is the validation step. So we have our lead list. We're inside zero bounce. I already have a bunch of credits here. So I'm just going to show you where to get your API. Okay, so on the left-hand side, it's actually going to be all the way at the bottom under the management category. We have an API. And then here, you're going to just copy whatever API key. You can create a new one. I'll do that for the sake of this demo. So we'll call it demo delete. And then we'll create this new key, copy it. So open it up, copy it, and then go back to my terminal. Okay, so we're back in our terminal after we have the API keys from NeverBounce. And what we're going to do here is I'm just going to advise it on which tool we're going to use. So I just want to emphasize that Claude updates the column in place that I'm talking about, which is this one, the email status column. Sometimes if you're not clear, it'll create a new column or it'll create a new spreadsheet, which is kind of extreme. It wouldn't do that, but AI can be quite literal sometimes, especially if context has gotten quite large inside the repo. You can always create a skill, and that's what I do. I have another repo for the agency that I work at, and it's pretty concise when it comes to the campaigns that we launch through the CLI. But I just want to emphasize that so you guys know how important it is to prompt correctly. Actually, in the meantime, if we actually take a look at our copy, we can tee it up inside of the sequencer. So Instantly is a tool that I recommend if you're just starting out. I'm just taking a look at the copy here, just so I know what kind of variables I need to surface. So we need to generate an MSP type. We need to generate normalized company. So we're inside Instantly. On the left-hand side, I'm going to go to email campaigns. I'm going to add a new campaign, and we're just going to name this tier A -SDR. We'll do SDR admin. So inside Instantly, we'll be uploading the leads on a campaign level. We have our sequence here, which we're just going to paste directly from our doc. And then we have a scheduler. I recommend Eastern time. This standard time is totally fine. You can get more intricate with it and segment based off of the location. But for the sake of the demo, this is more than enough. So we have our accounts. I already have a bunch of preloaded accounts on here. That's what you would choose. One thing that I should call out is you want to warm up your inboxes for at least 2 weeks. So for those of you who are already aware of that, if your inboxes are ready, just go ahead and attach them. Otherwise, you're on standby for 2 weeks. With that being said, a couple of things is you want to send the emails as text only. And then the math that I had outlined inside of the Excalidraw was 20 emails per inbox. You can go as high as 30. Some people will say you can go as high as 40, but if you're just starting, I'd like to lean conservative. 20 is more than enough, and then you can scale up week after week, to 2 to 5, and then eventually once you hit 30, I never do more than 30. But yeah, the math that I had shown you guys in the Excalidraw was calculated with 20 sends per inbox. So we're gonna come down here. You can add a time gap. I always like to prioritize new leads as well. That way we're getting through the sequence a lot faster. We're maximizing our sending volume essentially. And then provider matching. We only purchased inboxes for Google. If you diversified and you bought both, then you can do the provider matching. Although at this scale, it's not really, it shouldn't be a concern. So as you scroll down, cool. Everything looks good. So those are the settings that I recommend. And then we're going to go back to the sequence, and we're just going to copy, and here we'll add another step. And then in between each sequence, you want to wait 3 days. Let me grab the second one and then paste it in here. Cool. Hit a preview. We don't have any of the leads loaded up just yet, but if we did, we would be able to see the variables personalized in here. So we're back in our terminal. The validation step has completed. And it looks like out of the entire tier A batch, only 1,300 of those are valid. So it's really important that when you guys do this step, you want to go as wide as possible. So I think I stopped that at 10,000. I should have gone upwards of 20 to 30,000. I can use my full inbox capacity. So 1,300 are valid. The rest are invalid or catch-all. I don't even want to deal with catch-all. I only send to valid accounts. And then so as I scroll down here, column H has been updated. The email status is as shown. So valid is what we want. And it looks good. So why don't I go over to the sheet? Yeah, because previously it would say verified, but now it says valid, invalid, etc. So this looks good. So now what I'll do is, if you guys really wanted to, I'm not sure what Instantly's API is like, but you can actually have your terminal upload these leads for you. We can't upload them just yet because they are not normalized. So the next step is actually running a normalizing step on the company name, as well as running MSP type. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back inside of this session. Okay, so that was quite the long prompt, but in short, what I'm telling Claude to do is to add an additional column for this variable that we're going to be using. So the second touch doesn't get that variable, it's just the first touch. I'm just gonna give it some additional context and say, I'm gonna give it the so opening line of the email. So once we give it that, it's gonna cook. It's gonna take a couple of minutes. You're gonna wanna verify it, QA everything, and then I'll show you guys how to upload the leads. Okay, so one thing I want to flag as we're normalizing the company names and the scraper is fetching data from the front page of each domain. If you look closely, Claude is telling me that there's an issue with some of these domains. They don't return any data. So it's going to categorize the descriptor into 8 different types, which is more than enough. That's perfectly fine. So yeah, like cloud sales, healthcare, managed print sales cycles. Yeah, I mean, that works. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not giving me the full 8, but I am satisfied with this. So I'm going to let this continue normalizing the variables and surfacing the descriptor, and we'll load the leads up and we're good to launch. Awesome. Okay, so cool. So just another thing I wanted to flag as it's running the normalization step, there's a couple ways you can go about this. So I'm having Claude use my own tokens to run this step by launching subagents. That it will be the most economic option. Another option is using Anthropic API or any sort of LLM API like OpenRouter, GPT. You can do that too. That's just going to cost you, API usage. But depending on your plan, I do recommend a cheap model using OpenRouter. That'll allow you to run this normalization step pretty economically. Because if you're on the $20 plan, launching a bunch of sub agents will just eat up your usage. So I wouldn't recommend that. But why don't we take a look at the status so far? So the company names have been somewhat normalized. I'm seeing they stripped LLC. There's a couple that could be further normalized, like this one right here. So I just want to make sure that it's running properly. So I'll take a look at it. So I'm just running that step for clarification. Okay, so we are down to the final step here. It looks like step 1 of the normalization complete. Step 2, the MSP descriptor is written to the sheet. And then these are the 8 categories that it had come up with, which I'm satisfied with. A couple of quality checks here is like the legal suffixes from these names were all stripped. Any parentheses, we're just sticking to the parent company abbreviation. So it removed things like solutions, it removed group, things like that. So when we're addressing the company, it's a lot more natural. So like Alliance, Complete Network, Leapfrog, etc., etc. So I'm pretty satisfied with this. MSP type is here. And the final step is just uploading these leads manually. You can use the API, and it actually isn't a bad idea to, just so we can wrap this up. We're going to filter for all of the valid rows. I'm going to copy this, paste it into a new tab, because when I download the CSV, it's going to download the entire tab, regardless of what's filtered. So now this is my clean tab. I'm going to download this. I'm now going to go to Instantly, go to the leads tab, add the leads, upload a CSV, and I'm not going to, okay, cool. And it's going to be this CSV here. Perfect. Everything looks good. I'm now going to upload these leads. Awesome. And if we take a look, we are missing our subject line. So perfect. And then now we can map these variables cleanly. So if I scroll down, MSP type is here. And then I'm just going to move it over. Same thing with the first name. So if you just begin with the first couple characters of the variable, it'll actually provide a drop down for you. Curly bracket, MSP type. Going straight into the pitch, you would obviously replace this with the actual company. So let's just say it was like XIT Tech or something, but it would be a company that is aligned with your audience. And then we want to replace the company name, which is right here. Looks good. And then we just got to do the same thing on the other touch. And we'll do XIT Tech. Perfect. So now if we take a look at this preview, we're going to save this, go to the preview, and it's looking great. I mean, reviewing the preview. So we have our subject line, this dynamic variable, managed IT. Gordon's the first name. You know, we're calling out the exact type of IT services that they provide, which more than enough. We need to add a number here. So based off whatever your case study is, whether that's hours, revenue generated, you know, that you definitely want to put that there. It's very compelling. And we have our call to action at the bottom. So yeah, I feel really good about this. We can select other leads on this side too, and then it'll change. So we have telecom, we have managed IT, more managed IT. So yeah, guys, that is how we set up the entire campaign. Once you feel good about everything, you always want to give yourselves a test send. So what I like to do is from the preview button, you can send yourself a test email by just putting in your email and then send a test email, and you'll see how it looks. So yeah, that's the tutorial. Okay, guys, if you made it to this part, I really appreciate you watching. If you followed every step in this tutorial, then there's no doubt that you can build a Claude Code-based outbound engine that generates qualified leads for you or your clients. But having said that, I'm not going to pretend that it's easy to figure this out completely on your own. That's why I provided a link in the description. It has access to all the resources that I went over in this video. It's inside my school community, completely free. So if you just go inside there, you can access everything, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.